Hello, on today's video I want to talk about economics. I know, what's going on? Well, basically, I have decided that there's a couple of things that I have learned in my very not so long life, but filled with things. And I have realized, especially in the last couple of years, that sometimes sharing is caring in the sense that even when it comes to things that are not particularly fun to share and to talk about and to even think about, the reality is that we might need that extra help. There's a lot of things I have noticed that I'm like, I do would have liked to have someone in my life tell me this before. Not that would have followed it right off the bat, but at least I would have keep it in the back of my mind. And whenever things came out, I would be like, oh, right, there was this thing. So I would get to that. But it's always like that. But I do think that the internet is one of those places where theoretically we could use it to do that. And that's what I want to do today, I guess. I'm sorry, it just sounds so funny because of the things that I usually, uh, make a video about. But again, I think it's important. So, in order to do this, I have two pieces of paper here that I'm going to explain to you how I use. And of course, there's so many variables in this thing. However, there's some basic things that, again, I'm just putting out the thing that I have been using for a while, something that works for me, and then you take and you go. You can change it. It's not a pattern. You can do whatever you want with it. But I just want to share my method. And we start with this. This is a piece of paper that I have hanging on my board in there. And it's every month. We have the date, a thing, and the amount that that thing cost. This is useful for me because I'm neurodivergent. And so if I don't see things, I forget. So I need to be very clear in regards to this whole thing. Not only that, it's been actually a fascinating thing to do because when you are, I used to actually at first, I used to keep all of my receipts, but then I realized that after a certain point, I would just throw them away. Like I wasn't actually, like going through them and being like, oh, what did I spend in this month? And oh, look what I got. No, I would be just throwing it away. And so it wasn't really helpful. By doing this, I didn't have to keep the receipt. I would just write it down and then I could throw it away. And then I could see an actual idea of what's going on. I use a piece of paper, but actually at the end of the month, I put everything on the computer of a nice Excel file. And if you like graphics, I think they're really nice. I think they're very useful. If you like paperwork, also it's fine. The point is that at the end of the month, I started to notice this. I started to see the things that I would spend, and I realized a lot of things. For example, I started to realize, oh, I buy a lot of food and I don't need to because I have food at home. Like there's the grocery that you do. So there's no need for me to be buying things outside. And it's not just for the economic reasons. It was also because I started to realize that, oh, I was buying a lot of not very healthy food. And it was something that in terms of health is actually quite useful because you sometimes don't really notice these things. Another thing that I noticed, for example, is that at work I would go to the bar quite a lot to have a coffee and a pastry or whatever, muffin, whatever thing was calling me that day. And I was genuinely certain I would, if you had asked me, I would have said, oh yes, just a couple of times a month, every once in a while. And then this came up, and I was like, oh, I do it way more than I thought I did. And it's not that it's a huge cost. However, it's a nonsensical cost, actually, because the pastry, fine. Okay, because it's not just the pastry. I also like to talk with the girls at the bar. They're really nice. And so there is that aspect that I enjoy. The coffee was a nonsensical part because I take my own coffee to work. And so I have my thing with coffee. And then I was paying for coffee. Like it didn't make any sense. So I started to just have my cup. And they won't tell me anything because, well, I work there. It's not an issue for them. And so that kind of fixed it all. But I wouldn't have noticed if it wasn't for this. We all have methods of, again, this is just a baseline thing that works for me. You all have to find your own thing. But for me, it was really useful to understand these things and to understand many others. For example, there is a couple of months in which I realized, oh, I actually travel way more than I thought I would. So the expenses of some things were a little bit higher. But again, I wouldn't have noticed unless I would have wrote it down. And it's not about shaming, okay? It's not about writing it down and then be like, oh, I'm such a bad person. Because what that might lead is to not writing it down. And so you're not actually counting the expenses. It's not about that. It's about understanding. It's about noticing things. And that's it, because it can come in handy. For example, the whole thing with the bar, it comes in handy. And sometimes, yes, I still pay for the coffee if I particularly want it. Or sometimes I'm like, well, I haven't been buying coffee in a while, so I'm going to have another pastry. You know, it's a win-win. It's not about shaming, it's about understanding. Now, on this piece of paper, we see a couple of X's in here. And we have this space. So let's get from the top. For this, we're going to take another piece of paper in which I wrote down a blue X. This X represents the amount of money I get paid monthly. Of course, this is really variable. Depends on your type of work, depends on if you get paid once a month or you get paid twice a month. It depends on where you live. It depends on so many things. However, overall, contractually speaking, I get paid a minimal amount of money a month. Like, there's no doubt. Unless there's something particular happening because of the law. I know, and this is important also for whatever work you do, you need to understand these things. I know that every month I'm going to get paid an X amount of money. Yes, sometimes I can get paid a little bit more. It happens, you do extra hours or for whatever reason. But I don't care about that. That means extra money. I'm still working on the basic amount of money that I get paid every single month. So the income that I know I'm going to have, regardless of the type of month that I had. Okay, so based on this amount, I then need to start calculating the expenses. Things that I'm going to have to pay. I'm going to have to pay. Things that you cannot think about, oh, well, no, you're going to have to pay them. And we have different types. We have the one in purple, which is a monthly payment. Things like the phone, if you do, a car or the house, there's things that you have to pay every month a certain amount. And you need to calculate those. So this is a purple X's. Different types of payments, but still things that I'm counting beforehand. Now, we have things that are really certain. For example, if you pay, again, the phone or the house, you have an amount that has been agreed upon. So you know that amount. Then you have, I don't know the X, mainly because those are expenses that I am sort of calculating. When I started doing this, I started to notice that there's a couple of things that I have to pay every month. And sometimes I pay more, sometimes I pay less. Gas, for example. Sometimes I use the car a little bit more. During winter, for example, you turn on the heat, and so that makes it so that you spend a little bit more gas during the month. But then there's another month in which I don't. Maybe because I stay home, or maybe because I do a sort of arrangement, so I don't have to pay it. So I do throughout the whole year as a minimal amount that I have to pay. So I do an estimate of how much gas I have to pay a month, and I add it here. It's part of that expense because I know I have to do it every month. It's an amount that at least I know I'm not going to stay without gas. That's the point, is that I'm doing calculations so that I don't have to worry about it. If it happens, I mean, it could, sure, but it hasn't happened. So it kind of has been working. So yeah, those are the monthly expenses. Then we have in pink and in green, the expenses that are not every month. And now we have the pink one, which is every 3 months, and the green one, which is every 6 months. And this is where, again, it's really depending on the person, it's depending on how it makes you feel better. For me, I need to write it down, and I need to do the separation right off the bat, because otherwise my brain is not going to shut the fuck about it, and it's going to make a mess. It has happened. So, with the 3-month payment, if I have to pay something every 3 months, I could wait until the 3rd month to take all of the amount. However, you need to understand that that amount is going to be felt a little bit more this month. And it's not going to help because then every 3 months I need to do another calculation of sorts. Instead, what I like to do is that every month I take 1/3 of the total amount that I have to pay on the 3rd month. That way, I can count it as a sort of monthly expense, but of course the actual payment is going to come on the third. And I know that it's not going to be a heavy load for the third month because I've been doing a little bit, I can pay the whole thing. And it's out of my mind. Now, it is with the one that I pay every 6 months. Again, I'm using just estimates. It could be 4, it could be 2, whatever. But it is with the 6th one that becomes, again, very dependable. If I have to pay something every 6 months, again, could I wait until the 6th to take all of the money out? Yes, but if it's a big amount, it's going to be felt quite a lot. I could do every 3 months. So after 3 months, I take out half, and after other 3 months, take another half. Every 2, whatever works for you. For me, I don't like it. I like to do something every month because it makes my brain chill out. So every month I could take 1/6. So 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. At the 6th point, I have the total amount and I can pay it. I don't do it like that. And that's why I wanted to, lead it to you slowly but surely. What I actually do is that every month I take out 2 6s. So 1/3. Why? Basically because if I had to pay something after 6 months, what I like to do is that I like to do that after 3 months, I have the whole amount so I can pay it on the 6th month. What this does is that these extra 3 months, I'm getting ahead of myself, right? Because after 3 months, I was able to have the whole amount that I have to pay. But then I have these other 3 months in which I am starting to get ahead. And so I'm starting to save up for a future thing, right? This is dependable on how much you're earning. I know I can do this because I know that the amount that I have to take every month can be a little bit higher just so I can do this. But that doesn't happen all the time. It depends, again, on your mainly income. It's very dependable. That is just something that works for me. As you could see with the third one, with the one that I pay every 3 months, I could technically kind of do it, but that expense, it's a little bit higher. So instead, I know the thing that I pay every 3 months, I know it makes me okay to have it, on time, like to have it just straight up on the time. With the 6th one, however, I like to get on my head, and I know I can. See? This is the balance between I know the things that I have to pay, I understand the things that I have, the money I can use, and I understand what kind of works better for me, right? So that's what I do it. Every 3 months, I know I reach the total amount, and then the other ones, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is also useful if, for example, you owe money to someone, or if you're trying to do some extra savings, because by getting ahead of yourself, if something happens, you're already ahead. If whatever happens, because this is something that you need to remember, things are going to happen. You might have to buy extra things during the month because you cannot calculate everything beforehand. It's really rare. It's really, really rare, especially more that you go into, adulthood and whatever. It becomes really hard. So whenever you can get ahead, this is my big advice. And so every month I have the monthly payments, the amount that I take for the payment that I pay every 3 months, and the amount that I take every month for the payment every 6 months. Okay, so these are expenses. These 3 expenses I then take out from my monthly income, and I am left with X1. So X1 is the amount of money that I kind of have. I pay for the things that I have to pay, and now we're left with X1. What to do then? This is when I get into the savings. The savings is the yellow one that you can see here, and this is the biggest variable of them all because it depends on so many things. Let's say it's a chill month. I don't have birthdays. I'm not planning on going anywhere on holiday. I plan a very chill month. I don't have particular expenses that I can think of, and so I might be okay. We can take out this amount as savings already. Yes, I take it after I get paid. Mainly because, again, mentally, if I keep everything on the card, I might use it, because if I don't have this in front of me, I actually might forget. This is why it's useful for me to keep this paper in front of me. all of the month. It reminds me of the limits. So, I do a sort of analysis. I'm like, okay, maybe sometimes, some months, I get paid a little bit more, extra hours, whatever. So I might take a little bit of extra savings. And after I take out the savings, that again is depending on the month, depending on what I know is going to happen, I'm left with X2. X2 is the actual amount of money that I'm going to be using for stuff during the month. Of course, X2 cannot be negative because again, you're going to have to pay for things. So X2 is the one that pays for the pastry at the bar, is the one that pays for, oh, I have to take the bus or the train, is the I hang out with my friends and I'm going to pay for my drink. It's all of these things are going to happen for the rest of the month. Now, here's where, again, pay attention. If I know before the beginning of the month that I have an appointment, that I have a birthday coming up, I'm going to note, or if I have to pay something just for that month, I'm going to write it down right off the bat. So, I don't know, it's my friend's birthday and I know I'm going to give them a book. I have the book, I know how much it costs, so I write it down right off the bat, even though I might even pay it at the end of the month, even, it doesn't matter. But what I'm doing is that I'm writing down right off the bat, so then I can start taking out from X2 and I know how much money I actually have. So if I have, let's say, 200 in my bank account as X2, and I have my friend's book that it's a very nice special edition, 50. That means I have 150 left to use during the month. And so by doing this, I know how much money I actually have. Okay? This is helpful because of it. Because I know if I go out and I see something that costs 80, that's a big expense if everything I have is 150. And maybe it's the beginning of the month. Maybe it's halfway there and I'm like, ooh, I'm thinking about buying this extra thing. Let's see how much money do I have. Let's see the expenses that I have made and let's see how much money do I actually can use to buy the thing that I might have or need. Of course, again, things happen. This is why I say that X2 cannot be negative and I wouldn't recommend you actually spending the whole of X2 because I don't know, on the 30th of the month, something happened and you need to buy medicine or you need to pay for something. And so it's always good to still have some money. But the idea of this whole method is that at least you have paid the things that you have to, even though, okay, you pay them in different amounts of time, but you at least know you are not counting that money. You have some savings. And so what you're left with is the thing that you can work with. Of course, it happens. Sometimes you have to get into the savings. It happens. It's fine. There's no shame. The idea here, however, is that you understand a little bit better the actual active money that you can use. And then, of course, at the end of the month, once you pay for all of your dues, without all of the extra things that you got or whatnot, you have the X3 amount, which is the amount that you're left after all of this. I always like to have something in my card because, again, things can happen. If it's not a bad amount, you can put it on the savings, some extra savings. It happens. Now, the X2 as well as the X3 are also dependable. Sometimes I take out not so much savings because I am going on holiday. Or, for example, it's December, and so you have to buy gifts or whatever you feel that you have to do. And so I understand that the savings are going to be a little bit less. So I leave a little bit more money, but I still trying to maintain myself. Okay, just because I have more money to use doesn't mean I have to use the whole thing, right? And so the idea is always that X3, it's always nice if something remains. It's just useful. So yeah, that's math. Listen, I am not a fan of capitalism. I don't like to actually think about money. It gives me anxiety. But at the same time, it's necessary. If you are a creative person in particular, I think you, like me, struggle with these things because it's such a, straight up thing. But at the same time, by finding a method that for me allows me to have it clear, it works for me, it makes sense for my finances, and again, I can follow it up, it has been helpful. So this is my method. Of course, you also have apps that can do it. I know a lot of people like to use them. Like I said, I upload at the end of the month everything that I have here on my Excel sheets because I do like me a graphic. What can I say? So you have a lot of methods, but pen on paper, it's also fine to begin with. Again, I don't want it to feel like you have to not have fun with your life, that you cannot enjoy, that you have money to spend on things that you like. But the reality is that a big part of adulthood is to find it that middle ground in which you have responsibilities, and it is important to respect those. I know that some of us don't agree with them, but just because we don't agree with something doesn't mean it's not real, and doesn't mean we don't have to, apply them in real life and actually pay for a dues. I also feel that this is one of those cases where personal experience comes into place. I grew up on a very economically unstable household. I grew up seeing friends around me being able, when we hang out, to buy something, to buy the extra thing. I have been counting money all my life, which is also one of the reasons why I don't like it. I know I couldn't buy the bracelet if I wanted to eat. If we go to the cinema, I knew I have to go with a full tummy because I couldn't buy things at the cinema, they cost too much. For me, growing up in that environment, it made me realize quite soon how important money sadly is. That doesn't mean that it has to be everything. It doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the movie. Doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the times with my friends. Doesn't mean that I didn't appreciate the people that gave me that money because of the hard work. It's just an understanding of things that for some of us it arrived at a very young age, um, and it happens. It happens. What I think is important is to share, is to understand that, is to create the community that we lack so much, I think. I was really lucky to, even though I grew up with these economic issues, I have people around me that told me that yes, it's not a nice feeling to see your friends changing the whole wardrobe and being able to spend on some things that I wanted to as well. Sure, but at the same time, the laughs are free. um, Friendship is free, love is free, and what really matters at the end of the day, it's not how much you go to your grave on your bank account. Nobody cares, nobody really cares. So you can be responsible and you can also enjoy life. There is a balance there that can be found. It's not about hating on people, absolutely not. If anything, the system, and if we could dismantle it, I'm all for that. But until then, we have to work with it. You kind of have to learn to play the game, and not just to get ahead. I hate also that. It's not just to, well, don't hate the player, hate the game and the hustle. No, I hate that. Um, just to be comfortable. Just because also in my journey of neurodivergence, understanding of myself, these are things that if I don't tackle, if I hadn't, have to figure it out because I had to enter the workforce quite early, I would have struggled more and more and more, because again, you don't have people around you sometimes that teach you these things. You don't actually talk it that much with your friends. It's something I found out that there's a lot of people that just don't like to open the door, and they feel it's kind of a taboo subject. Oh, money, we don't talk about it. I don't agree. I think we should talk about it, because that's how you know. That's sometimes how you know that maybe you're getting fucked up by your job, that you don't have the same advantages that other people are having. This is something that actually happened at my job. There was a person who lives quite far, and if you live after a certain distance of your workplace, you can actually ask for a reimbursement of gas or public transport, whatever type of job you do. This person had no idea, and they have been working there for a while. So while others had that and they weren't worried about that, for that person, they were expending way more in their income. So they didn't have the same amount of income. You know what I mean? This is why we talk about these things. Like, I have no idea, but that's because I am really lucky to live quite nearby. I know some jobs tell you that because, for example, with some schools, if you work in different ones, if you have to move for work, those are expenses that you then ask for in return. There's some jobs in which that is not so obvious. And so if you don't talk about these things, you don't know. And this person, who knows how many months of income she had to take out, and she's never gonna see the money again, because after a certain time you cannot ask the money back. You see how the system kind of fucked us all? That's why talking is important. That's why community. It's not about shaming. It's not about, for example, with my friends and close people, to me, it never has felt as a competition or a, oh, so you pay so you earn more money so you can pay. No, actually no. It's been about ask for what you deserve. Again, understand the game, not to get fucked, and to be respected, and to at least be at peace with yourself. And yeah, I mean, it's not a tricky, it's a tricky thing. It's not an easy thing to get right off the bat. I understand that also. I have a lot of privileges. I have things like healthcare because I live in a country where there is the welfare system that makes it so that I don't actually have to worry about if I get sick, if I have to call an ambulance. I've been to an ambulance a couple of times to get to the ER. I've never had to pay a dime to it because I pay my taxes and because I understand how the system works. And so the things that I have to pay for appointments and things like that, I know I'm going to have them back, because, I understand that. But again, if we don't talk about it, so many people might never understand that, and it's not fair. So that's why community is important. I don't want to sound preachy, and I don't want this video to be too long because it's unnecessary, but I just want to hammer that point because I do think it's important. It's not about shame, either because of the amount that you earn, or because of the amount that you have to pay, or because of what you can or cannot afford. No, no, no. At the end of the day, trust me, we're all on the same boat because capitalism fuck us all, and it's what it wants. So the only thing that we can do is try to educate ourselves, create a community in which we can communicate these things, and find the best way to deal with this game, while also maybe finding ways to dismantle it, because it's not fair. Absolutely not. But I don't think that the answer is to be the hustler and try to get ahead and take advantage of others. Again, in your grave, that's not going to be written. I prefer to just, hey, let's share some information. Let's see how we can help each other understand better things. And maybe, hopefully, surely, one day, it might get better for all. Not just for one, for all of us. So yeah, this was economics. So yeah, I hope I didn't ramble too much, even though I know I did. If you have any suggestions, if you have any questions, please feel free to add them on the comments below. Sharing is caring, community is important. And yeah, that's it. I guess I'm gonna go. Hope you have a lovely day. Bye.